I just got back from Algonquin Park where I took some of the best images I've taken all year, probably of all time. What I thought I would do is just sort of go through all of them with you and edit a few of them together to show exactly like how I'm getting from raw files on a camera all the way to edited things that I might share on social media. Well, the trip was 6 days in total. My partner and I spent the first 4 days, 3 nights in the Algonquin backcountry, so canoe-in campsites. And for the first part of that trip was extremely rainy and wet. And the end of that trip, it was starting to get very, very beautiful weather. And actually, the end of the trip we sort of spent in an Algonquin lodge, Killarney Lodge, and it was really nice to be able to relax after this like time in the backcountry. But getting back to the photography, there was about a 24-hour span in the middle of this trip where the light was perfect, the rain had ended and the storms had ended, the clouds were just amazing, and all the subjects had just been sort of like wetted enough in order to provide lots of contrast. I was able to get images like this with the beautiful, beautiful light in both the evening and the morning of this like one 24-hour span. So I've got a huge number of photos that I really need to sort through before I can start picking which ones I want to edit and finally sort of which ones I really like. I've already started that process by sort of popping out my SD card and loading everything into Lightroom. And it's just sort of sitting here ready for me to edit. And I've, gone through a few of the images. I have a good idea of like what I have, what types of things that I really like, what types of things that I don't like. But really where I want to start is sort of how I break these down and put these into a different organization in Lightroom to really be able to figure out and select like what it is that I'm going to want to edit and then finally edit those photos. So I'm going to start just by talking a little bit about organization, at least how I have sort of laid out my Lightroom. I basically have two main buckets that everything goes in. One, which is all locally stored on the computer, which is all of the photos that I've taken that I'm either like working on or ready to be working on or that type of thing. And then I have a sort of network attached storage where I keep everything that I've already edited that's sort of, now just in storage. And I have copies, exports of it that I can share for social media, those types of things locally on the computer. So after I'm sort of importing everything into Lightroom, it all just ends up dumped into this imported folder here. And the first step that I'm going to do is just kind of break all these things up and really just think about like what are the different individual shots. And I may have several versions of that shot. I may have, taken that photo a few different times or tried it at slightly different angles. And so what I end up doing is I just sort of look through all of these individual, sets of photos. Maybe like this is a set of photos here. Maybe this is another set of photos here. And then I end up making folders for each of those in this other sort of in progress folder here. And this just helps me think about like the ones that I want and really just take them away from that like imported group so that they are by themselves. Well, I've just been looking through sort of the different files that I have, the different shots that I took, and trying to really think about like which ones are going to get me excited to start editing those. Because what I like to do is start editing the things that I think I'm the most interested in first, things that I think have the most potential, and then I kind of get into a workflow and it becomes easier to do the ones that are maybe a little more challenging or they're right on the edge of being like they could be really good or they could be not so great. Okay, I think I want to begin with this one. So I've got two images of this the same sort of scene. I think they were taken a few minutes apart. And you can tell actually this one's probably not going to work because, I've cut off the reflection on the bottom here, which I think in this photo sort of makes what this is. It's got these really nice light rays coming down, but then on the sort of bottom side of this, I've got these like, sort of ripples in the water and then this very clear, very sort of glassy reflection. So I think this is going to end up being the photo that I want. So I'll actually just take this file and dump it into this to delete so that I don't end up storing something that has no value to me. And I really just want to be able to kind of declutter and get rid of that extra stuff that really isn't useful. So I'll pop over into the Develop tab here. And usually the first thing I do almost always is sort of screw around with the color temperature. Because what I like to do is just sort of see the range of color that I could conceivably get out of this thing. So I've got this like very kind of gross yellow orange and obviously the sort of blue on the other side. I think the where it ended up taking this color temperature
5150, it looks really black and white, and actually I don't really like that. I wonder if I go over to the black and white, yeah, you can kind of see there's a little bit of color loss, but really not like a lot of change. But I like to have my photos just a little bit warmer, and so I'm going to take this temperature slider just up like a little bit, enough that it's clear that this is like yellow kind of glowing morning sun, but it's not, you know, sort of too extreme kind of up here, or you know, too sort of cool. So where did I have that? Okay, that looks about right to me. Now, the other thing that I do sort of right away is I just try to straighten the horizon out. This gives me sort of two things. One is if I have this sort of, you know, constrained to image, then as I sort of rotate, you'll see it sort of crops the image out so that I don't have any like missing parts on the side. And really what I want to be able to do is just get a good idea of like, if I have to straighten this out, you know, please crop it down to just having the things that I can have in that image and still have it perfectly level. Now I like this crop to begin with, just sort of the regular 4x5 that I shot it in. I think if I were to take this in a little bit more, you would end up with, you know, very little space with these sort of trees, and then probably a very boring kind of midground. So what I'm looking to do is really just figure out how to balance out the sort of light and dark in this image, so that when I edit it a little bit more, I can sort of see the sun rays. It's interesting, I find, at least with my editing, if I do anything that's a little bit destructive early on, I end up sort of feeling that as I'm editing the photo, I'm kind of losing a lot. And so each of the steps that I take in my editing really needs to add something to the photo properly, or I don't feel like I'm making a lot of progress. So I really like to make sure that the things that are going to make the photo look generally good right away, like straightening, getting the colors right, are sort of done right away, so that as I'm adding contrast and sort of, you know, looking at the different parts of the image and adjusting them, I'm not sort of making it look any worse with the hope that it's going to look better in the future, but I'm making it look better at each individual step, if that makes sense. Well, I haven't done a ton to this photo. If I just take a look real quick and reset this to the original, it really has, these light rays, this very bright kind of area. And if I bring it back to what I edited it to, it's just got maybe a little bit more color, a little bit more contrast with the sky being like even brighter, and really just kind of bringing out the sort of extremeness of this like light in the morning that was sort of coming through this fog, but it was very bright and sort of everywhere that you looked. And I like that. I don't think there's a reason for me to really change this at all. I do have a couple of things that I want to do. It looks like I had a spot on the lens or the sensor there, and I won't really bring that into Photoshop. I think it's a little bit easier for me to just kind of remove that using the eraser tool that's in Lightroom. And then also sometimes I like things in the water, but in this case I really do not like this little, I don't know what it is, floating leaf or something like that. So just sort of removing that, and then making the image just maybe a little bit cleaner with sort of fewer distracting elements in it. Okay, I think that one's pretty good. So what I'm going to do now with this file that I've edited is I'm going to just export it, and I've got this sort of exporting piece that I use. To basically make a TIFF file that's the largest possible like size that it could be. But really what I end up doing is I'm bringing a brand new file that has all the edits built in, so that when I'm looking at it sort of on the file system, it's not, I don't have to look at it in Lightroom, because Lightroom will store the edits separately from the raw file so that, they're not destructive. What I want to do here is make a sort of generic file that I can use that has all the edits baked in. Okay, so then what I'll do is I'll take the original, the original raw file here, and I'll make another folder inside of the folder that I have these filed in. It's just called sources, and move that file in there so that as I'm looking around at these edited files, what I really have is I've got, the source file that has all the, the edits applied, but then also I've got this sort of file, I've got this TIFF file that's got all the edits applied, that I can use for exporting, printing, sort of whatever I end up doing with it. Okay. The next one I want to do is this image right here. So very sort of interesting that I captured this. I ended up trying to get, I think it was, yeah, this image. And, like I really like this. I like this tree kind of out on either a point or a little island of its own. But then I had on my 50 to 400 millimeter, and when I had it sort of zoomed all the way out to 50 millimeter, I actually really enjoyed the way that the sort of clouds and the light and the water kind of frame up this entire piece. So I waited properly for the sort of sun to catch the different edges of this, this island or this these ridges here, with the hope that I could get something that's like kind of this really nice looking tree line, and then, framed up nicely by the clouds on the one side and then the reflection of that kind of on the bottom. So as I'm looking through these, what I'm really looking for is like which one is going to have the best overall, like light. So it sort of goes from being like not really a lot of light on this side. Maybe there's a little bit of light there. That's nice. And then, it looks like these last three are the ones that have the most amount of light. And actually, I like this one the most. So I'm going to, again, just sort of go over into the develop window and start doing my initial sort of changes that I like. Maybe I'll take the temperature up just a little bit and end up, leveling out the horizon. Although that one, it's a little bit different because of the angle of this shot. You don't have, perfect sort of water line to see. So maybe I will crop this in just a little bit so that what you're seeing, centers on this one individual tree. And you're not really going to make this out in the photo, but it's a nice little detail to sort of have that. And I will, add a mask or add a little bit of lightning to this area to really sort of bring that out. Okay. Now, I don't have a standard way that I edit, each photo. Usually what I do is I take a look at the histogram and I'm looking for, so for instance, I'm looking for a histogram that's like tight or wide and needs like either more contrast or less contrast. And I'm looking for where it is sort of centered within the image. So I might actually take a look at what, increasing or reducing the contrast does to this image. Normally I'm kind of grabbing some of the sliders and getting a good idea of, rocking them back left and right and sort of getting a good idea of like where I might end up wanting them to be. This case, I think this image needs to be quite a lot brighter, but if I take in the, up the highlights quite a lot, it's really going to sort of blow out the sky. So I'm going to take the highlights down first, as well as the whites, and then I'm going to go back to the exposure slider and just take the exposure up a little bit more so that I can kind of get a little more detail in the very bright parts of this image, this sort of band of cloud and sky here, and really like kind of lighten up overall this this tree line. Okay, I'm gonna end up using the tone curve for a little bit of this because what I'm looking to do is grab individual parts of this image without really a mask and just kind of lighten them up properly. So maybe I'll take this part here right in the center of this image and lighten that up. And then also like this area over here really needs to get a little bit more contrast on it. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I think I can take the sky and the reflection of the sky down a little bit. And so I'll just start grabbing some, oh, that didn't work there. I'll just start grabbing some of these points in the sky and sort of giving them a little bit of adjustment to see what that does to the image. Okay, for this image now, I'm going to go over and just do a little bit of masking. Now, Lightroom has these like subject and sky and background selector. If I go ahead and select the sky, of course what it's going to do is just select the top. And so that's not going to work for me because I have this reflection. And so I also sort of need this bottom. Now, what I can do is see if I can do a brush or, like an object detection to see if it can get the bottom as well. So let's see if I can get Lightroom to select the bottom part of this image as if it were the sky. Yeah, it's pretty close. It's got a few pieces that it's not hitting, so like there, here, but I think that's okay. And I'm happy with it, but I think it's selecting a little too much. So what I'm going to do is actually do the opposite, which is I'm going to select I'm going to select an object which is this entire piece of shoreline and the reflection that's sort of below it, right? The idea being that if I select this, then I can invert the selection of the mask, and hopefully what I end up with is everything that I didn't select. Yeah, okay, that looks pretty good. So watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say invert mask 1. And now what it's done is given me everything else that wasn't this tree line. So now I can kind of take maybe the exposure of this, just a little bit up to really like kind of give a nice bright idea of the sky there. But really what I want to do also is just sort of mess around, maybe add a little bit of contrast into this. And there's a couple ways I'm going to do that. Well, I'm going to add, take the shadows kind of a little bit lower, and I'm going to bring the whites up. Now, what this is going to do, you can kind of see what this is doing. Let me just reset these, is if I'm going to take the shadows down, that sort of darkens, like this area here and this area here. It almost creates kind of a natural vignette on the photo, but it's also darkened a little bit of these really sort of brilliant whites. And so what I want to do is take those up just a little bit so that I still have quite a lot of this like really shiny kind of brilliance in this photo, but I didn't also apply that, you know, to the sort of the dark parts of this cloud. Okay, let's go ahead again and just sort of select this area that I had previously, the shoreline, and I'll do a little bit of editing to this as well. So kind of the first thing that I want to do here is just add some texture, and I'm going to add sharpness. Now I'll probably sharpen more than just this part, but the image overall, but I really want the sort of micro contrast that comes with sharpening and adding a little bit of texture to this this part to really draw your eye like away from the sky and the reflection and more towards really just this area right here. I think I can also increase the temperature of this just a little bit so that's even warmer. And I'm going to actually take the highlights and make them even more pronounced. So now what I'm going to do is just bring a little bit more attention, contrast and brightness to the areas of the photo that are really lit up by the sun, the areas of the trees that are lit up by the sun. And specifically, I want to do this more in the center of the image than I do kind of on the outside of the image, because I really want the viewer to kind of come right into the center of this image and really get a good idea of, you know, what I'm trying to draw their eye to. So I'm going to use the brush tool for this. And what I'm going to actually do is just like increase the exposure of this tool just to sort of 0.1. And I'm going to take the whites up and the highlights up just a little bit each. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of come in and like brush over, kind of like the way you would do dodging and burning, but actually what I'm really looking at doing is just kind of getting a little bit more exposure, and I'm not really like looking to kind of go back over it like you would with the dodge and burn. Just want to really identify the parts of the image that sort of need a little bit of this treatment, and then kind of paint over them in just a little way. And I want to make sure that I'm also getting the reflections of those parts as well, so that you know, they end up bright as well. So now that I have this, I can actually just kind of like, you know, look at, so this is the parts that I painted in, right? I've sort of done this in an extreme way, and I can just sort of look at, you know, where it is, does this look kind of the best, the most amount of sort of brightness, and actually it was at 0.2, not 0.1. And then also like, what can I do to really like make those parts kind of pop? So actually I'm going to bring the blacks of those areas down. It's going to give me more and more contrast, right? Okay, I see now that I really just need to like, just get rid of a little bit of the sky, maybe make this image a little bit tighter. And the reason for this is just because I want to draw attention to these parts like a little bit more. And so if they're so sort of zoomed out, you know, you can't really see them as well. Okay. The other thing that I always do is I try to remove things that I don't really like. And so in this case, that is this dock over here. And just get rid of them. They were a little bit distracting. It's not so much that I don't like the sort of human element inside of these photos, so much as this is like off to the corner of the image, off to the side of the image, and it didn't really add a lot. It was just kind of this white and kind of confusing thing. So I really want it to be clear that all the parts of the image that I want to draw your attention to are sort of right on this little side here, right over to this piece. I think I might go into the sky and just bring the shadows up a little bit more. It's starting to look a little dark in a way that I didn't really like, and maybe bring up the highlights a little bit more, bring up the exposure a little bit. Okay. Well, that is looking pretty good. So sometimes I will keep a few images around like these other images that were taken at around the same time may in the future have a little bit of value. And these ones over here that didn't really get any light, those ones I'm perfectly happy to delete them. Let me show you what I'm doing here. So I'm going to draw those ones into the to delete, and then I'm going to take, just like I did previously, I'm going to make a little folder inside of this sort of Algonquin Park number 8 folder, just called sources, and it'll move that one photo in. But then the other thing that I'm going to do is make another folder called others, and I'm going to put all the other images that may at some point have some value that I could conceivably use, and just sort of put those in there. With this source file, I'm also going to do my sort of my export. Okay, well, I'm going to keep editing these photos. I hope you liked this video. I'm going to post all the photos that I edited to my Instagram. You can find a link to that on the YouTube channel, and then probably I'll take a couple and just put them at the end of this video, a little video review, just to really see like what it is that I got. It was an amazing trip, and probably we're going to go back and do the same type of thing next year. Overall, hopefully you got a little bit of value seeing sort of how I'm sorting through and editing these photos. And I had a really good time. So thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.